think you're on mute.
You're muted.
Yes, we are recording.
No, you're still muted. Okay, so I'll
Yeah,
just
I think it's fine now.
good.
Sorry, I'm sorry. So good day everyone. I'm sorry for the bit of technical issue. So welcome to our second webinar for the year, and we have some. I'm glad to be here, and I'm very sure this webinar is going to open a lot of intending young professionals into the field, like what is needed. And it's a great privilege to learn from people ahead, to stand on the shoulder of giants and to draw from that wealth of knowledge. So firstly, I will ask our speakers to please introduce themselves and their research, their field of work, and any other thing they would like us to know about. So in any order. So I don't know who would like to go first, please.
I can go first.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sierra Young. I'm currently an assistant professor in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at Utah State University. And before that, I was faculty in a biological and agricultural engineering department. So my research focuses primarily on the use of technologies, specifically imaging technologies, regular images, and also with the strong focus on hyperspectral and spectral imaging technologies. And I also do work in applied field robotics for sensing and precision agriculture and also environmental and water resources. So we do a lot of work with surface vehicles and drones for monitoring vegetation and aquatic systems. So I've primarily been involved in ASABE, more on the information technology, sensors and control systems types of committees.
Thank you, Professor Young. Thank you so much for that. And so who would like to go next, please?
Hey, before I say anything, can you guys see me? Zoom is telling me my video is not
Oh
working
yeah,
properly.
we can see you currently.
Yeah,
You
so
can see me.
Yes.
Interesting. I can't see myself. So excellent. So my name is Jonah Bolin. I'm a drivetrain design engineer at John Deere. I've been with John Deere after graduation, coming up on 6 years here in the spring. My area of focus is drivetrain design, as I mentioned, for current production transmissions. So I own the 7R IVT transmission and the Agritechnica award-winning EIVT transmission that we released in 2023. And so a lot of what my responsibility is handling production. So that involves handling supplier resourcing, quality issues, things like that, as well as new product and improvements to those transmissions, while also at the same time being the design engineer responsible for customer facing problems. So if a customer has an issue with their tractor or transmission, they reach out to our technical experts and then they come to us to help them better understand what their issues are. I've been in ASABE since an undergrad. I was really involved in the quarter scale design competition at the University of Nebraska. And so I've continued on in that regard on the committee as well as volunteering at the competition. And I look forward to this discussion today. Thank you.
You're very welcome, sir. Thank you so much for that. And okay, would like to go next again, please?
I think that leaves it to me. Hi, I'm Jean Walsh. I'm on staff at ASABE in the Standards Department, and I have been here for about 10 years now, dealing with a few of the machinery systems committees, but primarily with NRES and PAFS. The NRES is Natural Resources and Environmental Systems. PAFS is Plants, Animals, and Facility Systems. as well as the PRS processing systems groups. So I've been dealing with quite a wide range of our technical committees that we'll hopefully be talking about today.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jane. And I don't know if, sorry, Carolina Diaz, please, are you around? Oh, I'm not
She's
sure.
not on the call, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's great. That's great. So, to our panelists, I would just like to ask, maybe I should start from Professor Sarah. Like, how do you get into the committee? And if one, like, young professionals would like to be more involved in the ASABE Young Professional Committee, like, what tips will you kind of advise them to take along now?
Yeah, those are great questions. So I think the first was how did I myself get involved? And this was as a graduate student. I didn't really honestly know what the committees were, because I think unless you don't know, you don't think to go to those types of events at the ASABE meeting. So it was really my graduate advisor who kind of told me about the committees, what they did, how it was a great way to get involved, and encouraged me to attend my first meeting that I went to with him. So that was really helpful to kind of have a mentor guide me through that process because as a graduate student, sometimes you think, oh, is this something that I can even go to? I can even attend. And so that was, oh gosh, some time ago, 2016, I think, that I first started going to committee meetings. And then from there, once you go every year and join a committee and be involved and receive those communications, the other committee members kind of get to know and see you as someone who's active and interested in that area. And so after several meetings, I sort of volunteered to run for a position. I mean, typically with these committees, um, you might volunteer to run for secretary and get involved that way. And I think most of the time, the committees are very excited and receptive to young engineers being willing to step up and take on leadership roles. So that's something that I was nervous about doing for the first time, but then I think once you kind of see that people are excited to have new people engaged and involved, that is really what kind of led me to ultimately being on the leadership or through the chair for one of the subcommittees within the ITSC community, which is Information Technology, Sensors, and Control Systems. So I was involved with 254, which is Emerging Information Systems. And then from there, I was really interested in all of ITSC and ultimately ended up being now I'm the current chair of the ITSC community that kind of oversees all of the ITSC committees, but that sort of came about from me attending multiple committee meetings over several aims and just getting to know people who are active and involved. I think that's the biggest thing is not being afraid to kind of put yourself out there, attend meetings, speak up when people want volunteers for session moderators and organizers and things like that. And I think there's a bit of a snowball effect once you get involved.
Thank you so much. I think and that's really actually important in the sense that in terms of mentorship, like especially in academia, because as you rightly said, it was your mentor, like it was the advisor that actually should guide you into the committee, which is very interesting. Okay, that's a very good point to note. And Jonah, Bolin, please, can you give us your how you get into the young professional? Like, I guess you are in the industry, so it would be great and nice to have an idea of how you got into a survey, YP committee from the industry point of view.
Absolutely. And so it was kind of a similar route. I actually started as an observing member less than a month after I had taken my full-time role at John Deere. I went to the Boston annual meeting, and at that meeting, one of my professors suggested I go to these committee meetings that he was involved in as part of the machinery systems committees, specifically tractors, so MS-23, 4, and a variety of those standards. And so his suggestion was for that first time, just go and listen, introduce yourself, meet some new people. A lot of these people are the experts in the standards area of industry, so they know where the standards are going. And so for that first year, all I did was listen to the topics, meet some people, and then as I also continued to go to a couple later meetings and then got put on the email list, you start to see some of the trends on the standards and kind of the process for how those standards are developed. But from that first involvement, it's really just getting to know people and being prepared to learn all that depth of knowledge that is there in those committees. A lot of these industry professionals for tractor design in this case have been in industry for 20 or more years. And here I am, 1 month out of college, with just an undergrad, trying to learn as much as I can on these areas. So what I was told early on was with these standards, there's kind of 3 phases in your natural career progression. And for the first decade, you're really just there learning, on the standard side, that is. After being involved in those a little more, I was approached to get involved on the YP side, where I could meet and connect with peers who are in different areas of the industry. For example, ITSC, natural resources, all the other areas that ASABE brings together. And what that does is it led me to, broaden my base. And then eventually I was asked to be on the YP Executive Committee as a membership develop MDC chair, excuse me. And so from there, I've just continued to increase my involvement, and hopefully in the near future, I'll be able to take a little bit more active role in those standards committees as I have a little more experience under my belt.
Thank you so much for that point. And also would like to welcome Carolina Diaz. You're welcome. Please can you just say a bit about your background, your research, or if you're in the industry, what you do, and how you get into the ASABE YPC.
Hi. Sorry for I am late. I'm in Spain and the change of time was a mess. Sorry. Well, my name is Carolina Diaz-Garcia and I work at University of Illinois as a postdoc. I started to work there as a postdoc with Dr. Laura Christensen, in which is the nitrifying bioreactors and saturated buffers, removing nutrients from water. Can you listen to me? Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. And then last summer I moved to work in the lab with Dr. Sen, and I'm working also with which of the nitrifying bioreactors, but this time with a second step of biochar chambers to remove not only nitrates from the water, also phosphate with the biochar. I started to be involved with the ACBA standards 3 years ago with the NRES 23 drainage, and then I became a representative of this committee in the NRES 07, that is nomenclature. So it was a really good experience for me because I met a lot of people and I learned a lot. So was really good. So it's really important for me, like the meeting, the conferences, talk to people, meet people. That is the big tip that I can give to all the people that are listening, like meet people, talk to them, get involved in all the committees, go to the meetings that we have in the ASABE conference, talk to people. That's everything. So right now I'm working in nutrient removal, also nitrates and phosphorus, but I'm starting to work with PFAS. And they call forever chemicals because they're really difficult to remove from all the environment. So this is a new step for me and a new thing, but it's really important. Tell me if you want me to talk something else.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. We're happy to have you on the meeting. Yeah. So I would like to ask to throw this question to the house. What do you think are the major important traits or that is needed to actually take a leadership role in YPC committee so that the young coming professionals could actually learn to work on those traits and qualities that is needed to actually take a leadership position in the young professional.
I think, as I said before, is to meet the people, talk to the people, and get involved with all the committees, all the people that are interested in your area of study. Yeah, so mainly that, like, get involved.
And Professor Sarah Young, so what's your contribution to this? Like, what are the qualities you think young coming engineers and professionals should actually look to take on board, or while doing their grad school need to work on so as to um take a leadership position in the young professional committee?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that we sort of all alluded to is being eager to learn, eager to participate, take some initiative in what you want out of the experience. Not necessarily waiting for someone to come to you with ideas, but if you want to be involved, you'll only be involved as much as you put yourself out there. So I think not being afraid to do that. And if you do find yourself in a position such as, helping with a session, moderating a session, or after, some years of involvement, taking on a leadership role such as secretary, vice chair, chair of these committees, being reliable is very important. It can be frustrating where some people, show up and say, hey, I'll do something, and then we all physically leave the meeting and months later and you don't hear from them or you reach out. There's deadlines associated with these committees putting together the sessions, reviewing abstracts and things like that. So if you're going to volunteer for something, making sure that you are reliable and follow through, I think is also a big thing, because ultimately a lot of this is falls under the category of volunteer work or service work for a lot of us. So it's important to not let it fall completely to the wayside if you have other priorities such as research or your professional responsibilities.
Okay. I would like Jane Walsh to actually comment on this, because you've been a leader in the ASABE platform for a long time. So what do you think the young professionals coming should actually prioritize in terms of leadership traits and characteristics for them to build in order to attain leadership positions in ASABE YPC?
I think that it's important to understand that as the young professionals are just getting their feet under them, whether they are in a postgraduate position or new to an industry position, that they have a lot of uncertainty. And as Sierra mentioned and Josh mentioned, and even Carolina mentioned, stepping into that committee meeting, whether it's for young professionals or any other technical committee, can be extremely intimidating, because first, you don't know if you are welcome, if it's okay for you to go in. The door is closed. Let me tell you right off the bat, the door is closed simply because there's noise in the hallway. The door does not mean that you can't come in. Every single committee meeting that happens short of the board meeting at our conferences is totally open. So don't ever feel that you can't start to explore some of those areas that you have interest in. Another thing that's extremely intimidating, and Josh mentioned this, is that he walks in and he's told, oh, these are the experts with 20 years experience. And you think, I've been in my job for 1 month. What do I have to offer? And that in itself can be intimidating. And you think, well, I'll wait until I've got 5 years experience before I go into a meeting. Don't hesitate. Go into that meeting, because not only will you start learning about processes that are talked about in the meetings, whether it's standards or leadership or other representation, but you get to meet people who are in your area of interest, whether it's industry or academia. And those people can open up doors for you in so many different ways. If you are focusing in academia, you may meet people in industry who can give you some sparks that you can bring into your research, for example, or vice versa. And it's also important to know that the people who are currently in that technical committee are so excited to have you walk in that door. I can't even tell you how excited they are that they had young people come in, because the people who've been in that committee for the past 20 years talking about the same thing are waiting for someone to bring them something new. And if you're coming into industry or out of your academic career, or starting a new portion of your academic career, you're cutting edge. You know the stuff that's really just been happening, the stuff that maybe is being talked about in industry quietly, but not overtly. And you have some great ideas. You have a different perspective, a different way to look at it. You know, my children are your age. And I learned that if I have a question, I ask them, because they have a totally different way of looking at something and presenting it to me. And I'm like, well, why didn't I think of that? Because that just wasn't my life experience. So don't be afraid to bring who you are at this point into those meetings. You know, you're talking a lot about leadership, and I do want to caution everyone that just because they're excited to see you, don't take a leadership position right off. Too often you'll walk into one of these committee meetings and they're so desperate for someone young to start into the leadership route. They'll say, oh, we need a secretary. Okay, sure, I can take notes. You know, that's not a big deal. Keep in mind that the secretary then moves into the vice chair position, then moves into the chair position. And you may not be ready for that. It's okay to say, oh, I'm going to put the brakes on this year and watch and listen and learn. As Josh said, you know, it's important just to learn about what they're doing and what's happening. Last year at the meeting, where were we? We were in California. I get confused. We've been to so many. In California, I had a young woman come up to me who'd been active in leadership for about 8 years. And she said, she's really had moved up the chain. And she said, Jean, she said, my first meeting, I went into this committee and I didn't even know what the topic was. And they said, we need a vice chair. And they said, would you like to be our vice chair? It's a great way to learn. And she didn't know how to say no. So they made her the vice chair. And guess what? As soon as the meeting was over, she was the chair, because they had no one in that position to fill it. And that was a real disservice to her, because she went through 6 years before she let me know that she had no idea what she was doing. And she had been moved up into advanced leadership positions. And I would email her and say, what do you think about this? And I would never get a response. And I didn't know what was going on. And she said, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know what you were talking about. And I felt so bad, because if I had known that she'd been put in this position, I could have provided her the training and support that she desperately needed. And we had a really long talk about that, and we're trying to change the dynamic. So if you go into a technical committee meeting, number one, you are more than welcome. Walk on in, take ownership, sit down at the table and listen. If you're asked to take a leadership position, ask what it involves and how long the term is. If you're willing to do that and follow the commitment, as Sierra mentioned, that's great because it kind of jumps you into it. But if you're not ready, it's okay to say, I'm not ready. I want to sit and listen, but I do want to be on your committee, because then those emails start coming through and you start figuring out who's the real active members here and who should I be paying attention to? Who should I go and introduce myself to at the next meeting? So all of those things are really important. And that's how you learn to become a leader, by watching other leaders. Skills that you want to work on as you move up to that, the initiative. Walking into the room is a huge initiative. Facing that inner fear of, I don't think I'm really ready for this, and just jumping into it. Because the people that I have come in contact with at ASABE, it doesn't matter what committee, they are so welcoming and supportive. It doesn't matter where you are, they want you there. They want to get to know you. Organization. As Sarah mentioned, if you make a commitment, you need to be reliable because people are expecting you to be part of that team. So if you're not ready to make that commitment of reliability, just say, sorry, I can't do this yet. You may want to make a commitment and say, I will do it if I can partner with someone. So if you can partner with a mentor who's already done it, then they can walk you through the steps and teach you the steps. So that's another good way to do it. And if you're talking about even leadership positions in young professionals, that might be an area that you're a bit intimidated to give it a try, but you might initiate and say, can there be two of us so we can share the position? I don't think there's anything that says you can't do that.
Right.
So those are my suggestions.
Thank you so much.
I agree with the last thing that Jean said. Like, it's really important that people commit, because I found alone sometimes, like, I need some support, and the people that is supposed to help you is not doing it, and it's extra work for you. So yeah, it's really important.
Interesting. Thank you so much for pointing that those out. Okay, I would like to ask this from Jonah. Your early involvement in the Young Professional Committee, how has that opened you up to different collaborations and opportunities in the industry, in the academia, and also what advice will you give to the young coming professionals on how to position themselves to be on how to position themselves for these opportunities as well?
So there's two aspects, like everybody has kind of talked about. There's the Young Professional Committee and its subcommittees specifically for the YP community, and there's the standard committees that we're talking about. And one hand feeds the other overall. And so, as Jean mentioned, as you are developing your technical expertise, you're still learning. There's no reason you can't jump in headfirst onto the YP side of things if you're ready to be able to take the time out to do some of the things that you have to do, attend meetings regularly, set aside that part of your schedule. And for myself, the biggest thing that it opened up was getting involved in committees, and getting involved in the YP Executive Committee gives me a reason that I can actually attend these meetings and then continue learning more. A lot of what on the industry side of things is, there's not a big business incentive to send somebody on some of these events that ASABE does unless there's something that the company can benefit from. So if I'm involved and I'm learning on these tractor standards, on these professional development activities, then I'm developing myself as an employee and as an engineer, that I can then guarantee that I am still able to go to future events, to ATEC down in Louisville, to section meetings. And so what that does, it then, one, ensures that I can keep going and can continue learning. Two, I'm able to build my network with those other engineers that are similarly learning on the YP side of things. They might be in a different area, but we're all kind of going through the same process. And then three, like Gene said, and Sierra pointed out, it then sets me up with a network that when I'm ready to take that leadership jump, I'm prepared to do so. And so for me, it's been there's really three individuals, pretty much one at each of my competitors, coincidentally, that I've been able to develop a relationship with where at these meetings I can poke them with some leading questions on how they're trying to do some things without giving away any secrets. And then it also helps me refine maybe some things that I'm not thinking of that I maybe should be considering. So there's a lot of crosstalk between companies. It keeps our pulse on the industry and with what customers and the way the design is going in terms of trends. And so it just kind of keeps you up to speed because it's really easy to get caught up in the 9 to 5 routine, clock in, clock out. And for me, being involved in ASABE is one of those things that I'm passionate about and can stay connected to people that are also passionate about these topics.
Right. That's very awesome. Thank you for that comment. Professor Sarah, I would like to ask you this, like when people transfer from one industry across this industry from one industry to another, do you still believe they should still continue on the ASABE committee? And also, how can this transition into different industries favor the continued work of the committee?
Yeah, I can provide some insight on this, at least from the perspective of academia, because that's what I've experienced so far. I could envision this question as sort of transition to different industries, but also transitioning into different research areas. Because I've been involved with, the same committees for some time, but maybe I work on a new project where we're using a new technology or it's applied to a different area where another committee has experts and people working in that area. So I do think it is valuable too as your research, and I guess this also applies, I would assume, to industry evolves and maybe you start working in other areas because ASABE as an organization is pretty broad, right? Unless you're a super well-defined expert, odds are you likely might work across multiple domains, especially if you are doing research or something like that. But I think being open to, even if it is just dropping in and observing and learning to see what are the topics these committees are discussing, what are the cutting edge areas happening in that field at that time, even if you have no intention of ever taking on a leadership role. I think it is valuable to have that awareness of what's going on if you're exposed to that as part of your transition in your job or your research area. I think it would definitely add value. And again, as it was mentioned, you're bringing a new perspective, right, to that meeting. Even if you're a longtime member of ACB, but you've never gone to this other committee meeting, you're still kind of new in that context, right? So you have all these experiences to bring. So I definitely think being open and being involved with ASAB as your career evolves is super valuable. That said, if you go into a career that is totally outside the field of anything that ASAB does, then maybe you don't want to stay involved there if all of a sudden you do a complete 180 and have to get involved with other societies. But I definitely think it's what we cover in ASAB is very broad, and there is this whole concept of standards committees. A lot of committees don't even have standards because they're kind of mostly focused on technology that researchers are using. So I think there's something for everyone working in these broad areas. So I definitely think that would continue to add value to you as a professional to continue expanding your knowledge and awareness of everything that's happening within the society.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sierra really hit it on the head. Same thing applies in industry. Right now I'm in a very mechanical engineering focused role. But if I wanted to get into data and precision agriculture and some of the cutting edge things that, maybe John Deere or maybe some outside firm, if I decided to leave John Deere, if I'm staying involved and aware of some of the industry trends and the standards and the research that's going on, I'm going to be setting myself up to succeed a lot better than if I was just staying focused on these tractor standards alone.
Yes, that's a very good point. Carolina, what do you think about this? What's your opinion about this?
I agree totally with them. It's totally fine to change and look for the best community or area inside of ASABE that match with the study that you are focused on that time. And also, even if there's nothing similar to whatever you are doing, like Jean said before, have some input from people that are in other things can help you to think out of the box, outside the box, and get more information, another way to think. So it's really good.
Thank you. This question will go to Jean. Yeah, so young professionals are mostly postdoc, graduate students with a lot of work to do on their research work. So how can the young professionals committee help balance this by mentoring them as well as management of these coming young professionals, such that they are both effective both in their field, in their research, as well as in the young professionals committee's work.
So how can the young professionals be mentored?
Yes, and how to better mentor them and manage them such that they can actually work carry along their research as well as their activities and their ASABE professional.
Well, we talked about organization, and as you mature, that's something you have to learn to do, because we all have to balance our work and our volunteer efforts and our social interactions, responsibilities. Your responsibilities grow as you grow. So I think that's where it's really important for young professionals, when they become active in this society or any other society, to be open to taking that step of reaching out to someone else who is already an active member, to learn some of the tips and tricks and to ask questions. I think that's the whole goal of these webinars that you've been putting on, which I think are wonderful, because it helps to guide the young professionals to, I guess, be brave and know that it's okay to ask any question. You don't have to feel that just because you don't know an answer or you're uncertain about something, that there's something wrong, because you don't know something you've never experienced. But once you start experiencing something and a new experience, a new interest, and asking someone who's already walked that path to share their experiences with you, it makes life so much easier. On our staff meetings here, we talk about how to take processes that are 20 years old and let's update them. Let's make them a little more efficient. Let's look at some new ways of doing things. And we talk to people who are already trying some of those tips and tricks, and then we try them. We try to apply them to what we're doing here in the office. And I think that is really the key. You've all done it. You talk to your friends all the time, and you ask them, what do you think? How do you think I should do this? Well, take that and don't be afraid to ask someone who may be 15 or 20 years older. They were young once too. I was young once too. And so we know how difficult it is when you feel unsure of yourself inside. As I always tell my kids, fake it till you make it. Just talk with confidence, and someone's going to think that you know what you're doing. And then pretty soon you do know what you're doing. So, I don't think there's any magic other than trusting yourself and trusting that you're not alone in feeling uncertain when you enter a new situation, whether it's in YPC or whether it's moving into a technical committee or moving into a new job. And questions are never wrong. So don't be afraid to ask them.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So you actually mentioned this while you were discussing that the way young professionals could contribute to the success and also the innovations in the works of the YPC is to actually talk, to be more bold. Do you have any other ones that you think what they could do to actually bring innovations and their ideas to the committee?
Just what we've been talking about. Just come into the committee, sit, listen, and when you hear something that you might be able to participate in, a topic that comes up that you have an idea, speak up. It's I can't stress enough the people who are in the committees do want to hear what you have to say. They do want to hear your ideas. It may take a little bit of convincing, but they're not going to think of it unless you bring it up. And then go and have that personal conversation. Start that networking. Get their name. Give them your name. That's really the only way that you're going to, I guess, feel a real part of ASABE is by talking to people, so that when you're passing in the hall at that next meeting, you see someone you recognize. You may not remember their name, but that's okay. You still see a familiar face. And then you start feeling a part of it and can start inviting other people in. And then they're looking to you to be the mentor. Like I said, fake it until you make it. They don't know that you don't know.
I mean, this has been a very great session, and want to be sure that the audience also have time to ask the questions. So feel free to drop your questions, or if you want your mute to ask questions. I mean, around some of the things we've been discussing. While we wait for that, okay. I see a question. I'm just going to read that out for the panelists. So, and anyone that wants to answer that. So, Gina and all panelists, how many standards committee do you recommend participating in? I'm planning to step in little by little since I'm already active in YPC and one of the Nebraska section leaders. Thank you all.
I would recommend that anyone interested start by looking at the list of committees we have. And you can find that on our website. There is a tab at the top that says committees. And on that page, there is a link in a top paragraph about descriptions of the committees. That'll take you to a whole list of committees, and you can jump down into different topic areas, whether it's machinery or water or energy, ITSC, whatever, to see the list of committees that might interest you. So read the slight description that is provided, and I would suggest that you start with possibly two, because If you only go on one, that's the only experience you have. But if you have two different committees, they'll be run by different people. They may have different topics to discuss, and you'll get to have a much broader exposure to other people with your interest area. And I don't think two would be too overwhelming. If you're going in as an observer, you're just going to get emails and you can track what's happening, but there are no expectations that you're going to do anything until you absolutely step forward and say, I will do something. You don't have to do anything. You just enter as an observing member.
Thank you. I'm not sure if anyone has anything to say to that, but
Yeah,
okay.
my advice, I'm involved in, I would say, all three areas of some of our committees. I'm in the standards committees. I'm on the young professional, or was, excuse me, on the young professional executive committee, and I'm also on a competition committee. My recommendation would be to dip your toes in all three, but try to limit your leadership to one of those three. Leadership is where the time commitment really increases. You know, a section should be considered its own committee as well. So if you are leading a local section, it might be really hard to also lead, a national section as well. I myself actually had to step back from the YP Executive Committee because I was nominated to be the vice chair on the quarter scale committee, which is a time commitment for the next 6 to 7 years, being an active participant multiple hours per week. And so I had to know my time limit on how much time I can give outside of work to ASABE. Like it's been mentioned, this is a volunteer side of your career in many cases. And so just knowing your limit is excellent. But if you're just an observing member, I would say you can do more than two and even up to as many as you are willing to keep up with, really, because there's emails and things. But to start, like Gene said, two, maybe you add one each year.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions? Well, while we're waiting for someone, if you have questions, feel free to drop it on the chat. But I would also ask a question. I know Jean already talked about, because this is the focus of the webinar itself, because we're trying to really help young professionals who really want to get into the leadership roles. And as Jean has said, if you are joining a meeting for the first time, it is not ideal for you to just jump into the leadership role. But I mean, all our speakers today, I mean, the panelists, they are in one leadership role or another. So I just wanted to know, at what point do you all feel you were, I mean, you were confident enough or have all it takes for you to become a leader? I mean, Dr. Young is currently leading one of the committee, and I know Jonah also has been serving for a long time now, and also Dr. Diaz as well. So you all should talk about that. Maybe Jean also could talk about, at what point do you feel young professional could now serve in those roles? Is there any timeline out there about? Okay, so anyone could start. Let's just have that.
I don't think there is any hard and fast rule here because everyone has their own personal skill set. And there may be someone who has been in leadership positions throughout their education. You know, maybe they were on panels or in organizations or clubs for many years. And so there are some people who are very skilled leaders right out of the gate when they're graduating and entering into the young professionals arena. So in that case, those people could be natural born leaders who have had a lot of experience already, and they may feel most comfortable jumping in and helping out. If you are needing to practice some of those skills, like I suggested, you know, offering to help the secretary, offering to help someone else who is taking on that leadership position, offering to assist by moderating a technical session during AIM. That's an easy one. You're introducing people, you're watching the time. you have to stand in front of people. I think one of the probably the most intimidating thing that people have told me is I have to stand up and talk in front of people. That is really hard when you have not had that practice. And so give yourself a little bit of grace and know that if you stumble over your words, it's okay. People aren't going to be upset about that, but you have to know that you're going to be able to get through that and do better the next time. So again, it's your comfort level, but I would at least give it a year of observing activities and expectations before I would jump into something unless you feel pretty confident in your leadership skills.
Well, thank you so much for that. Maybe that's also what other panelists have to say about that, but I don't want us to just get over it. So I mean, just in for everyone, maybe you can just give kind of a concluding statement or an advice if we don't have any question from the audience. So I'll just say you should say one thing. What would be your last advice to young professionals? And some of them will be joining this committee. I would like to hear from everyone. I mean, some of the transferable skills they should be looking forward to and how they can annex the opportunities that are within this committee group. And as much as possible, also maybe eventually take on leadership role when they feel they can. Thank you. Everyone would have to say something to the last.
I
It's your
can say
last chance.
something. I think, like we said before, and Jean said before, like to step to the leadership, be honest with your time. Be honest to get commitment and to get the leadership is really important because you are starting and you're gonna